What's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Let's dive into our first news. Dominick Cruz has shared his honest thoughts on the idea of Ilia stepping into the boxing ring against Terence Crawford. According to Cruz, Ilia simply doesn't stand a chance in a straight boxing match with Crawford, no matter how confident he might be. Cruz explained that boxing is Crawford's art, his world, and stepping into that domain without years of pure boxing experience puts Ilia at a massive disadvantage. For Cruz, if this fight ever happens, it needs to be done in a way that makes things a little more balanced for both men. He suggested the possibility of having two fights, one in boxing and one in MMA, to make things fair. Cruz also floated the idea of boxing with 4 ounces gloves instead of traditional boxing gloves. According to him, that small change could completely alter the dynamics of the fight. With lighter gloves, there's a greater chance of knockouts and less room for defense, which could give Ilia a better shot than he would normally have in a pure boxing setting. Cruz believes this would add excitement, make it more competitive, and bring a new twist to the idea of crossover fights. Cruz admitted that while boxing against Crawford is almost impossible for Ilia to win, MMA would be the complete opposite. If Ilia faced Crawford inside the octagon, the fight wouldn't go well for Crawford at all. The ability to grapple, wrestle, and use a complete arsenal of attacks would make the matchup completely one-sided in Ilia's favor. However, Cruz pointed out that Crawford does have some wrestling background. If Crawford could figure out how to defend takedowns and keep the fight standing, then maybe, just maybe, an MMA fight could be more interesting than people expect. Still, Cruz was clear that boxing is where Crawford shines, and Ilia would struggle heavily there. He doesn't think Ilia's boxing skills are anywhere near the level needed to compete with one of the best pound-for-pound boxers in the world. That's why he believes the fairest approach would be one fight each, with both disciplines represented. Cruz even referenced the massive audiences that crossover fights have drawn recently, mentioning the record-breaking views from events like Jake Paul vs. Tyson, which showed the demand for these types of spectacles. For Cruz, the idea of Ilia versus Crawford is definitely fun to talk about. He likes the concept of one fight in boxing, one fight in MMA, both using 4 ounces gloves to make things truly unique. In his eyes, that's the only way this matchup would be both fair and exciting. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We are constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That is why we truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update here on MMA Pulse News. Moving on to another news, Artem Lobov has shared his thoughts on Conor dropping out of the Irish presidential race. According to Lobov, this decision was the right move, as he feels Conor isn't in the right mindset at the moment to take on such a massive responsibility. Speaking to MMA Fighting, Lobov explained that the idea of Conor running for president wasn't new. It was something the two of them had spoken about years ago. In fact, one of the reasons Lobov even arranged a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin for Conor was to build political connections, knowing that Conor had future aspirations in politics. Putin, being one of the most influential figures in global politics, was an important person to establish ties with. Lobov admitted that while he supports Conor's decision to withdraw from the race, he still believes that Conor could make a strong leader in the future. Right now, however, he sees this move as the correct one. He pointed out that Conor hasn't been himself lately. For instance, he pulled out of a press conference, which is not something Conor has ever been known for. Lobov reminded fans of the fighter they once saw competing for an interim belt despite severe injuries. At that time, both of Conor's knees had torn ligaments, leaving him unable to walk, yet he still showed up to fight. That, Lobov said, was the true Conor, the version of him that people trusted could one day step into a role as big as leading a nation. He went on to say that the Conor he knows has always been fearless and willing to face impossible challenges, which is why many believed he could succeed as president. But in his current state, Lobov doesn't think Conor is ready. There are too many things in his personal and professional life that need to be addressed first. Running for president requires focus, discipline, and a clear mind, and Lobov feels Conor has to get all of his ducks in a row before stepping into that kind of arena. Lobov emphasized that he still believes in Conor's potential and sees him as someone who could bring real change to Ireland by addressing the issues that truly matter to the people. For now, though, he views this withdrawal as a positive step. Rather than forcing himself into politics unprepared, Conor is taking the time he needs to reset and fix what's necessary before making another run at such a historic challenge. Moving on to another news, the MMA community has been roasting Michael Chandler after his latest comments about finally fighting Conor. With Conor officially back in the UFC's testing pool, Chandler is once again hopeful that the long-awaited matchup will finally happen. During a recent interview with MMA Fighting, Chandler spoke with excitement about the possibility, saying he believes deep down that the the fight is destined to take place. He explained that he's always warned people not to bet on Conor actually coming back, but now that things are moving forward, he feels the fight makes complete sense. In his words, "In my heart of hearts, I think I'm fighting Conor at the White House. And that sure does make a ton of sense for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, I want the White House. Ideally, if he becomes Conor, that would be awesome. We have unfinished business. I've got respect for him. He's got respect for me, but we do have unfinished business." Chandler went on to remind people that Conor himself had shown interest in the fight before. He referenced a moment when Conor shared an AI-generated image of the two facing off and even called him out on Twitter. Chandler said, "He's expressed interest and he said we have unfinished business, and we do." But while Chandler remains optimistic, fans across the MMA community didn't hold back in roasting him online. One fan posted a meme along with the message, "I've never seen a fighter so obsessed with one particular fight. No one besides him wants to see this happen." Another added, "If this dork had an ounce of self-awareness, he'd go away. Nobody cares about that fight. Most want Conor Nate 3. The sentiment was echoed repeatedly, with many fans insisting that the trilogy between Conor and Nate Diaz is the matchup that truly makes sense. Others went even further, accusing Chandler of being desperate. One fan joked, "He sandbagged his last couple fights to make sure he didn't look too much like a threat." Another wrote, "I've gone from laughing at the patheticness of Chandler constantly groveling for the Conor fight to now thinking the man seriously needs professional help. He's obsessed." Some even said Chandler has lost his aura, with one comment reading, "Bro, you're not that guy anymore. Stop acting like that fight would benefit the fans. The only one interested in that fight is you, because it's a huge paycheck." For many fans, this fight might have been exciting a few years ago, but not anymore. Now both fighters are seen as past their peak. Whether it actually gets booked remains to be seen, but for now the MMA community is making it clear that most would rather see Conor face Nate Diaz one more time than watch him fight Michael Chandler. Moving on to another news, Raja Jackson has been arrested in connection to the Psycho Stu situation that took place last month. According to reports from TMZ Sports, Raja was taken into custody on Thursday morning at around 9 a.m. and booked on a felony charge. At the time the news broke, roughly 10 hours after the arrest, he was still being held behind bars with bond set at $50,000. This development comes after weeks of speculation following the altercation that gained heavy media attention. What makes this even more interesting is that earlier this month, during an interview with Ariel, Rampage Jackson gave his opinion on what should happen with his son. He mentioned that he believed Raja needed to spend a little time in jail, serve some community service, and also attend anger management and therapy sessions to learn from the experience. Rampage explained that while he supports his son, consequences are necessary, and this situation could be a wake-up call. Now, with Raja officially arrested, it looks like things have taken a serious turn, and the case is far from over. With Raja Jackson's arrest now public, the MMA community has been quick to share their thoughts. Many fans questioned why it took so long for action to be taken, pointing out that video evidence and countless witnesses were available from the start. Some felt the arrest should have happened immediately and criticized the delay in the process. One strong reaction was that Raja should not be bailed out right away, with many saying he deserves at least a year or two behind bars before even thinking about release. The sentiment was clear, that his actions nearly ended a man's life and left a crowd deeply traumatized. Others highlighted how his reputation and career have been badly damaged, all because of a bruised ego over a stage spot involving a beer can. The community described the incident as reckless, unnecessary, and damaging not just to Raja, but to everyone involved. This morning, TMZ released footage showing the exact moment Raja was arrested by the LAPD at his apartment. The clip captured him being taken into custody and escorted to jail, making the situation feel even more real and serious for everyone watching. TMZ has now confirmed that Raja Jackson is officially out on bail. Reports stated he posted bail at around 8 a.m. today, and as of Friday morning, he is no longer behind bars. This marks the latest development in the ongoing fallout from the Psycho Stu situation, which has kept Raja in the headlines for weeks. His arrest earlier this week stirred huge reactions across the MMA community, with many debating whether he should have been granted release so quickly. The bond was set at $50,000, and now that it has been paid, all eyes will be on what happens next as the case continues to unfold. The situation has already left a major mark on Raja's career and reputation, with footage of his arrest circulating online and sparking even more discussion. For now, he walks free, but the story is far from finished. Moving on to another news, Bogdan Guskov has revealed a shocking story involving Jon Jones from back in 2013. While Guskov is now on an impressive 4-fight win streak inside the octagon, more than a decade ago he was working security at a nightclub in Moscow. That night, Jon Jones and Alexander Gustafsson were in town promoting their first fight, and Guskov had a front-row seat to what went down. In a recent Russian-language interview with Osha Taika, Guskov shared his memories of that wild evening. He explained that around 10 p.m., Gustafsson decided to call it a night and headed back to get some rest. Jones, however, went in the complete opposite direction. According to Guskov, Jones stayed inside the club until 5 a.m., drinking heavily and partying like there was no tomorrow. Guskov recalled being shocked that a fighter of such a high level could spend the night in that way, especially when preparing for such an important matchup. At one point during the night, Guskov said he even witnessed something completely unexpected. Jones and former heavyweight champion Frank Mir ended up wrestling on the floor of the club. Security staff, including Guskov himself, didn't dare to break it up. Luckily, it was all playful and not a real fight, but still the scene was surreal. Seeing two elite fighters rolling around drunk on the floor of a nightclub was something Guskov never imagined he'd experience. When asked by the interviewer if Jones had been drinking vodka all night, Guskov laughed and explained that it wasn't just vodka. According to him, Jones drank everything that was available at the bar. Beer, vodka, cocktails, it didn't matter. He was going through it all. Guskov admitted he was surprised to see just how much Jones could consume and still keep going until the early hours of the morning. Of course, Guskov's story isn't the first time fans have heard about Jones' partying lifestyle. Over the years, plenty of fighters and insiders have shared similar stories about his wild nights out. This one, however, stands out because it came from the perspective of a fighter who was working security at the time and witnessed it up close. For Guskov, the experience of seeing Jones in that environment was unforgettable, and it still shocks him to this day how much Jones partied before one of the biggest fights of his career. Moving on to another news, Dana White has officially confirmed that the UFC co-main event scheduled for Perth has been cancelled. Just days before fight night, fans were hit with disappointing news. The highly anticipated matchup between Junior Tafa and Ivor Olan is now off due to injury. Earlier today, Olan took to Instagram to reveal that his opponent had pulled out. In his post, he explained that Tafa suffered an injury that forced him to withdraw. Olan wrote, "My opponent pulled out of the fight because of an injury. The fight will not happen. Get well soon, boy. We have to rebook this fight. There's no space for you." This unexpected cancellation left the promotion scrambling, but unfortunately the UFC was unable to secure a replacement opponent for Olan on such short notice. That meant the co-main event slot needed a quick adjustment, and the promotion wasted no time in reshuffling the card. The new co-main event for Perth will now feature Jimmy Crute going up against Ivan Ursulon, a matchup that promises fireworks and plenty of action for the Australian fans. As a result of this shakeup, Dominic Reyes versus Carlos Ulberg has now been elevated to the main event position. While this wasn't the original plan, the fight still carries plenty of intrigue. Reyes is looking to re-establish himself in the light heavyweight division after some tough setbacks, while Ulberg, one of the fastest rising contenders, sees this as a massive opportunity to make a statement at the top of the division. For Ulberg, headlining in Perth is a career-defining moment and a chance to prove that he belongs among the elite. Although the news of Junior Tafa versus Ivor Olan being scrapped is disappointing, the updated card still carries a lot of excitement. Fans were eager to see Tafa back in action, but injuries are an unfortunate reality in combat sports, and sometimes these situations can't be avoided. Olan himself showed respect in his statement, wishing Tafa a speedy recovery and hoping to rebook the fight in the near future. With the adjustments now finalized, the spotlight shifts to the new main event and co-main event. The Perth card remains strong, and fans can still expect a night full of action, drama, and high-stakes matchups. While the cancellation stings, the UFC has ensured that the event will still deliver in a big way. Moving on to another news, Oscar De La Hoya has once again taken aim at Dana White following the debut of Zuffa boxing this past weekend. In the latest edition of his Thursday Clapback series, De La Hoya didn't hold back as he addressed both the event and Dana's ongoing involvement in the boxing world. He started off by claiming he predicted the Canelo versus Crawford fight like a fortune teller, describing Canelo as flat-footed with his feet cemented to the canvas while swinging at air. De La Hoya praised Crawford for moving up 3 weight classes and still delivering showing what he called a beautiful performance, comparing it to taking candy from a baby. He made it clear that Crawford earned his respect with that showing, but De La Hoya didn't stop there. He turned his attention to the undercard, calling it a disaster, and saying he felt bad for investors wasting their money on such poor promotion. He then went after Dana directly, mocking his appearance by saying his t-shirt looked like it was shrinking by the minute, especially when reporters pressed him on his attempt to amend the Muhammad Ali Act. According to De La Hoya, the only reason Dana wanted the act changed was so TKO could exploit fighters. He sarcastically called Dana Uncle Fester and accused him of trying to silence the boxing media the same way he controls narratives in the UFC. De La Hoya pointed out that during the event, Dana even skipped the undercard altogether and only arrived in time for the main event, where he was spotted watching UFC fights on his phone instead of focusing on the action in the ring. To De La Hoya, that was proof that Dana has no real passion for boxing and only sees it as another business venture. He openly wondered if Dana now regrets stepping away from the UFC spotlight to pursue a sport that, in his words, doesn't even want him. Interestingly, De La Hoya himself had been dismissive of Crawford's chances heading into the fight, so many in the combat sports community are now pointing out the irony in his praise after the fact. Critics have been quick to remind him that before the bout, he argued that Crawford jumping 2 weight classes to face a natural light heavyweight like Canelo was a mismatch. He claimed Crawford had struggled with Madramov and barely made it through that fight, suggesting that Canelo would simply overpower and run him out of the ring. Now, with Crawford's dominant win over Canelo being hailed by the media as the biggest fight of the decade, De La Hoya's change in tone has raised eyebrows. Some fans believe he's only praising Crawford because it aligns with his agenda of discrediting Dana's involvement in boxing. Regardless of the motive, De La Hoya's fiery comments have added more fuel to the ongoing feud between him and Dana White, a rivalry that has stretched for years across both boxing and MMA. That's it from MMA Pulse News. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for daily MMA news.